This is Channel 253. Beep, boop, boop, boop.
On this episode of the Grit and Grain podcast.
I'm a super big fan of Tacoma in the sense that I like to see Tacoma be better, and the people who do things that make Tacoma better, I will support to no end.
Welcome to the Grit and Grain podcast, where we explore and celebrate the craft beer industry, community, and history in Tacoma, Washington, and surrounding Pacific Northwest areas. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Grit and Grain podcast, coming to you from the Parkway Tavern in the North Slope Historic District of Tacoma, Washington. I'm Ron Swarner, taking over MC duties from Matt McLaren, who needed extra time for his daily gourmet dinner tonight, as his bougie meal called for the oil from Chardonnay grape seeds, so I imagine he's at home filleting each seed. If you follow Chef Matt's Facebook, you'll see how well he and his family eats. Always to my left is the Rogue Dead Guy hat-wearing Sean Jackson.
Hello, everyone.
Rogue just introduced a Dead Guy IPA. Will you be adding another Dead Guy item to your wardrobe?
I'm all about taking items off my wardrobe.
Nice.
Especially after a few barley wines. They just drop. It's weird.
Nice. We have another notable Tacoma publican as a guest today. Someone who owns much of this town. He owns the United Kingdom-style pub in this town. He owns the largest whiskey collection in Tacoma and beyond. He owns the soccer headquarters in this town. He owns the Seattle Sounders party bus in this town. He owns the Guinness Club in this town. He definitely owns St. Patrick's Day in this town. Sean, tell everyone who's our episode number 30 guest.
Oh, big one. Russ over Heaton.
That Matty Parks dropped that on.
I'd be
Nice.
in trouble if I didn't say it.
Nice. he and Mary are actually part of one of my. I've got two of the big screw up stories. They're involved in it.
Oh, well, Russ, happy Robert Burns Day.
Yes, indeed. I did have a scotch today.
Did you?
Yeah.
Have you ever hosted a Burns dinner?
I have. Dinner as well as a tasting. The tastings go better because as much as people say, "Oh, I'd love to try some haggis," yeah, you say that.
All of them.
You say that, but you never really. No one ever follows through with it, and so the meals always fall a little dead. And I like to hold true to the spirit of it. And then I'll break into reading some of his poetry, which again drives people out of the room. And so when we just dialed it back to where we're tasting scotches, people loved it. And so it devolved from a Robert Burns supper to a Robert Burns toast.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
for those who don't know, Auld Acquaintance for New Year's Eve is where Robert Burns is most known for.
Yeah. And a
did
song
not know
about
that.
haggis, too.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a song about haggis.
Oh, yeah, he wrote it.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Russ.
Oh, I'm
It's
happy
a
to be
pleasure
here.
to
I'm
have
happy
you
to be
here.
here. When I was invited on, I immediately thought of, and I'd listened to Chris Miller. And
Do you have a rodeo story?
I wish I had a town that would have told me to get the hell out and never come back. I have been kicked out of a country, but they didn't post it on any sort of signage. It was just the judge said, "You're gone for a year. We'll call it good. Drive to the border. Thank you very much."
Which country?
Canada.
Who needs them anyhow?
Exactly. Yeah. But when I started immediately thinking about the Parkway, and like when I started selling beer, I didn't know how to have the Parkway. But this was back when there was a milk jug in the front, and there was a Beamish sticker on it that I had placed on that jug to cover up the Guinness as a salesman when I eventually got the account. But back then it was me and John Huey, lonely souls playing dominoes together when no one was coming in here. It was a proverbial ghost town of drunkenness. So
So clear up between Sean and I. We can't quite remember what distributor you were with.
I started with Western Washington Beverage, which was eventually turned to Alaska Distributors, which was eventually turned to Odom / Northwest Beverage / Columbia / Southern. They got chopped up mightily, and I left them in 2006.
Did you not work for Heineken at some point?
I applied for the job, but much to my chagrin, my PowerPoint skills were the thing that cost me the job. I was told that in the exit interview. Afterwards, they said, you were our top candidate. We really wanted to hire you, but we felt like your PowerPoint skills weren't good enough to deliver sales presentations to distributors. And I'm like, so you're telling me everything about me was great, except for I don't know how to push a slide button? What the fuck?
Yeah.
That hurt. I was going to work for that portion, what they call their Star Brands portfolio, which was Newcastle, John Courage, Beamish, and I feel like there was one other one in that category that I was going to work for. But that was when I was trying to leave, when Alaska Distributors was eliminated the position I was in, and I was going to have to go back to being a district manager or become a district manager. I was like, I don't want to do that. And my territory was North Lake, Washington. Really didn't want to commute from Tacoma for that. And I was desperately applying everywhere, and it came close to several jobs. And then it came and this is the process. I was trying to open Doyle's at the very same time. So a little bit panicky since I didn't have a spouse to support me. and so I was trying to open a bar that wasn't putting any money in my pocket. So I had to have a job. And it got back to me later, about a year later, that the company had actively told suppliers not to hire me because they couldn't afford to lose me at the job I was doing for them there.
Whoa.
Yeah, disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's one of those life lessons that you learn, that you say, don't be like that person. So you take that in and go, I will never do that to another individual. So since then, whenever somebody says they're not happy working at Doyle's, I say, let's find you a new job. So I pick up the phone and I start finding them a new job, because the magic isn't that somebody leaves you. The magic is when you find that person. They're always going to leave you. For anybody who has had a girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other that's left, that's how relationships work. And if you can be really adult about it, you can say, well, I wouldn't say this in an emotional relationship. I wouldn't go find my wife a new husband. But I will more than gladly find a current employee another job somewhere else if they can find happiness there, as opposed to the happiness in the four walls I'm trying to provide. Mm-hmm. So,
well, it's also crazy that any of these other distributors actually listen to that too. Because if I got that phone call, like you're my competition, like, hey, don't hire this person because I can't afford to lose them. But that's almost like egging me on, like, you know what I'm going to fucking do? I'm going to hire that person.
Like, that's the incestual part of the industry, is that when you have relationship, when the higher ups have relationships with those suppliers because you distribute their product, and or they used to work for you and now have gone on to another company that you may not sell, you have that relationship that you can press the button on. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't begrudge them, because it forced me to make Doyle's a success. And so here I am 17 years later.
Yep.
And so I will gladly take that. And I found my wife there. And so without that push and a nudge, I wouldn't have been working there. I would have still been a traveling salesman and not enjoying life. So,
amen.
So
Before we continue on, Sean, tell us what we're drinking.
Oh.
So
Is that this?
we've got the Traquair House. It's a Scottish ale.
The Jacobite?
The Jacobite.
Yeah.
And the story behind this brewery is really cool. It was the Traquair House. It was giant estate, and I think it housed like lots of royalty had come through and stayed in the family, and they ended up finding a brewery.
Like on the premise, they just
in the basement.
Oh, look at that! There's a brewery.
Because basically the brewery, whenever it stopped producing beer, it just became like the garage. Like all the shit got thrown in there. So this thing apparently was like 300 years old, and so somewhere in the 1960s, they cleaned it up and started producing beer there again. And one of the recipes, I'm not sure if it's the Jacobite. I feel like they do a house Scotch ale, and I feel like they do a heather ale too. But one of them was a recipe. It's like very kind of Dogfish Head-esque, where it was dug this up in this 300-year-old brewery, and there's 0 hops in it. It's all like your heather and stinging nettles and bog myrtle and pretty much everything but hops. And that was really fucking cool.
Which is also very refreshing these days.
Yeah. And it also, like, this was one of the breweries that, I don't know, it was kind of like when they started operating that brewery again, it was sort of a craft beer revitalization for the area. And, like, Camera came along very, very shortly after that. And this was kind of their pony to ride. Like, look at this beer and look at this brewery. And
it's very, wasn't it Fritz Maytag who had 2 exact breweries? He had a whole garage full of equipment matching the equipment of Anchor Steam because he felt like I should have 2. And then when he sold the brewery, he still had all this equipment. And then I don't know what happened to the second set, but essentially his heirs found this second set of brewing equipment that was the original stuff that Anchor was using. So.
That's fucking awesome.
That is awesome.
Yep. And that seems like something that exactly what you would do.
Right. When you've got Maytag money, you can do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Russ, what year were you at E9?
That's a loaded question. I thought you said we weren't going to keep some things off the record. So my journey at E9 started when I was 19 years old with Bob Hill as my bartender and Jack McQuaid. I was a fake ID'd person named Robert Sidney Heaton, who happened to be my brother. I went through the beer club 5 times before I turned 21. Won their oyster eating contest when I was under 21. But I came via E9 to work in 1995. I circled back around after I opened up the Powerhouse. I'd come back from Europe, and Powerhouse was looking for somebody to clean the building out before they opened up. And so I took that contract with the then assistant brewer to Carl Ockert from E9. We cleaned the bar and the restaurant, and I met the GM, and he said, "Do you want to bartend?" I'm like, "Sure." It's been 3 years. My first bartending gig was at Magoo's back in college, prior to the burn down. And I was like, "Yeah, get me in, coach." And then quickly transferred over to E9, had weekends there for a while. So, yeah. Pete Gisty was there sitting at the end of the bar back then. And so it was, I started going through my like catalog after you sent the text. I was like, God, wow, shit. I've been doing this thing for longer than I thought I had with, intermittent breaks. So.
Didn't you try to buy any Magoo's?
Adam Buff bought Magoo's, and I was interested in getting involved with him for that, but he had another money partner because Adam and I and his other money partner all went to high school together in Auburn. And then I tried, I looked at probably a dozen other places. There was Josh Hill and I looked at a place together, 2 places together. I looked at buying E9 and fortunately couldn't come up with the financing. It cost me some money, but I'm glad I didn't buy it because it would not have ended well. because we would it would not have ended well. It was a very, it costs a lot of money for me personally, but I'm glad it didn't happen. So,
And the name of the Josh Hill was going to be Dr. J's?
yes. Yes, it was. Because my former business partner was Dave, me, Russ, and then Josh for Hill. So, and we had a real clever 70s motif. I have all these old Sonics posters and 1970s Converse sneaker posters that I still have to this day that I absolutely love, that we want to decorate it with and have not so much a basketball theme, but a basketball theme, if you know that makes sense. You know, we're going to be wearing John Stockton shorts or anything like that. But it was going to be for those from Olympia, the old school pizzeria, have that vibe that just
the Farrah Fawcett photo.
Just sort of that 70s essence, but centered more around athletics, because that was all the posters I had. So,
And Josh Hill was an incredible basketball player, too.
Still is.
Yeah.
He can still run the court. I'm always impressed. Cat-like reflexes for a man of my size. And so that's always impressive to me.
Yeah.
I love that name.
Dr. J's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a horrible story when I was young. One of the many churches I got drugged to, I don't know why, but I got chosen to be in this choir group. And the members that were already in there, it wasn't a choir group. It was a church boy band. Yeah.
Now, before you go to the church boy band, were these just random people grabbing you off the street, dragging you to churches, or were these your parents?
So Pops went fishing, Mom went to church, and I kind of fluxed in between.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So...
well, Jesus was a fisherman.
Yeah, fishermen, children too, apparently. Sometimes it was so the kids already in the group it was Brandon, Jason, and JJ. So naturally, the name of the group was the BJs. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know where I fit in this, and they're like, well, you can be the S. Yeah. BJs.
You make us multiple.
Yeah. So much.
Did you guys ever cut a single?
Churchy love
Did
it.
you guys ever get signed? Was there an interest from Michael Jackson's record label?
Cousin Michael.
Too soon? Too soon?
No.
Too late? I don't know where do we fall.
I love the Cousin Michael jokes. It's always. Oh God, that was horrible.
Yeah.
It was a short career for me, thank God. It was just BJ, I guess, after I left. It really fucked the band up.
But a great name for a TV show from the 70s as well, BJ and the Bear. You can't make a show like that these days. A monkey and a truck driver cruise across America solving problems.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's amazing. I mean, honestly, can you imagine the pitch for that, BJ and the Bear?
I don't know. Netflix might grab it.
Little remake. I think there's a remake.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
But he's an Amazon driver now.
Wow. So, Russ, tell us how Foley's in Reno changed your life.
Holy cow. How'd you get that deep cut?
He's good at it.
Man. So Dave was getting married, and we're going down to Reno because that's where people who don't have money when they want to go to Nevada go. And that was me. So we went to Reno for a bachelor party. And across the street from the hotel that we booked, there was an Irish bar called Foley's. And at that point, I shouldn't say at that point, I'd always been a drinker. But I drank more than my share of Guinness that day, to the point where the night bartender comes over to ask the day bartender, who's off drinking now, saying, what are those guys about? And she says, they're fine. They were here yesterday, and they stayed through my entire shift and half the night shift. And so I think they can handle themselves. Are you sure? And he's like, okay, I'll keep letting him drink. And I think we're 23 Guinness for me in from start to finish. And I try to avoid shots because it throws the whole equilibrium off. But I can session up on some Guinness.
Yep.
Are you on their Guinness wall?
I'm sure somewhere I could be a wanted man down there. And at this point, Dave decides, yesterday was a good session. Today, we're into a deep session. We should do shots, though. And I'm like, dude, we don't need, this is the recipe for the tip over. And sure enough, shots. Dave bartender comes over, does shots with us. Night bartender comes over, does shots with us. And at this point, we're feeling it. We're really getting into a good groove. And I say to Dave, and we'd been talking about opening the bar, I said, we either shit or get off the pot. And he goes, what? And in my head, I'm like, I thought I said that right. Did I say that right? Is that because I remember distinctly like that moment of, do they not understand the words that I'm saying because I'm that fucked? Or am I just, and I said, we have to shit or get off the pot. I felt slowing it down would be better. I was tempted to go louder, but I felt like I didn't know modulation at that point. And he looks at me and goes, what? And I go, and I say it one more time. And he goes, about what? Like shots? And I'm like, no, we're already into the shots. The bar. And he goes, oh, the bar. What do you mean? I said, 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks to find a place. If we don't find a place 2 weeks after we land back in Tacoma, we never speak of opening a bar again. Neither one of us. We don't say, hey, what about this? Oh, we should have done this. It's done. And he looks me dead in the eye and says, cool. Wake up next morning. I look at him and go, did we have a conversation about the bar last night? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, just want to make sure. 2 weeks, right? He said, 2 weeks. We get back to Tacoma. I'm on a walk with the girl I'm seeing at the time and her dog, and we walk past that. I walk past that building, and I immediately call. It's for sale. I'm like, oh, this is it. Real estate agent goes, I've got somebody who's interested in buying it, but would you be interested in leasing it? Naivety sets in. Oh, yeah, I'd be interested in leasing it. Now he can sell it to this guy, telling the guy, I've already got a guy who's willing to lease it from you. Works out. One of my dumb mistakes works out again in my favor. It's luck of the Irish, but I'm not Irish. We go through the tour. After that, I said, Dave, get down here next day. We walk through it. 2 days later, we're at an attorney's office drawing up paperwork for a partnership. We sign a lease. We start, and this is in June. We start construction in September. We open that April. And the only reason we opened in April is we'd run out of money. My credit card was maxed. We had no more cash anywhere, and my fake ID was not working to get another credit card. I mean, we were strapped. And so Dave goes, we're opening. Done, April. And that's how Foley's changed. It was that over-exuberance of sitting in a great bar. I don't even know if it's still open, drinking far too many pints to say it was that moment in my life that either we had to execute it. The funny part is Dave didn't tell his wife that we had agreed to this, that we had formed a partnership, that we had signed a lease, and that we were now in construction until about a month and a half into construction. Did he say to his wife, hey, by the way, we're opening the bar. Set us off on a not the best foot in that regard.
Yep.
If you're thinking about opening a bar, if you're thinking about going to a bar, best to tell your wife prior to. Yeah. I mean, I'm here for relationship advice too. I can give that to you.
I was on when we opened Pomodoro Dave was the opening crew bartender. That was fucking horrible. It was the worst. He had the best gig in the building. It was like, hour and a half meatball sandwiches, but it was cool. Just like gave away a lot of drinks.
Yeah. Well,
you got to make a lot of cocktails.
That's the best part of when you're bartending a situation like that. I'm making people happy. It's those people behind the cooks that are making
yeah.
I met Dave when he was working at Lorenzo's when I was at E9.
Yeah.
And so that was where our relationship started when I think he was 19, 18 that time, tending bar at Lorenzo's, because that was the type of thing you could get away with back then is that sort of...
I worked for Lorenzo.
Yeah.
Yep. You could get away with a lot, as long as you weren't putting extra cherries in the Shirley Temple.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whipped cream on the spumoni.
He was very mindful of his costs.
He was, yes.
But that's why he was successful.
Absolutely.
So.
All right, gentlemen. Producer Doug Mackey on the 1 and 2 says it's commercial break time, so we'll be right back. Welcome back from our commercial break. We want to give a quick shout out to Channel 253, our sugar daddy. Channel 253 seeks to assemble the best podcasts about Tacoma, whether about politics, news, culture, food, sports, or mash tuns. They want to tell a story of Tacoma one episode at a time. A monthly membership or an annual membership would mean the world to them and us, and it would ensure Channel 253 is able to continue to create great podcasts and events for you. Check them out at channel253.com/membership. Russ, how did you decide what your opening tap list would be?
Good question, Ron Swarner. By the way, plug for another podcast, not on Channel 253, but Moon Underwater, which is based off of a George Orwell essay about a ideal bar in his mind. Mm-hmm. But they interview people and they ask them a very similar question: what are the ideal traits of your bar? Somebody introduced it to me 2 weeks ago, and I am utterly fascinated by it.
What was the name again?
Under the Water, Moon Under the Water.
Awesome.
It is
I'm on
tremendous. I knew that I wanted Guinness, Smithwick's, Harp, Newcastle. I feel like there's one other I'm missing. There you go, Bass. Thank you. It's weird because now you can't get Bass on draft, and Newcastle is no longer on draft, and so it's Norris Beamish or a lot of other ones. But I wanted to be exclusively IPA, or not IPA, import. And when we came out with the initial tap and we opened up on April 17th, there was another bar owner in Tacoma who walked in, looked me dead in the eyes, looked Dave dead in the eyes, laughed at us and said, "I'll give you 6 months before you have on Pabst and Rainier on tap, or you're going to close." I was like, "Cool, thanks for the tip. We will take it under advisement." And they were stone cold dead serious. Like they couldn't they were not alone in the unbelievable, like, you don't have one domestic on draft? You can't do that. That's absurd. And I had always, when I first got into the business, I was selling some awful beer. And when I'd go in and try to sell awful beer to people, I would say, well, you can have a portion of the pie against all these other bars, or you can have a whole pie of some of these awful beers. And they weren't awful, but they weren't like they were 1990s, early 2000 micro beers that were not the best. And so that's how I came up with the list. Is I wanted to be not what everybody else was. I wanted to have you were going to come to us because of this. Yeah, it may have been a super small, very segmented portion of the market, but that market was going to be mine. All 7 people, they were going to be all mine. And so from there we went. And then it became problematic. The imports started to dry up because the expansion of great beers and production over here. And we started a 22-ounce bottle program for IPAs, and we looked at the sales of them. It was like, we're just flying through these things. And at the time, we had 3 empty handles waiting for import kegs to come over. It's like, can't leave that real estate like that. We got to put one on. And Mac and Jack's was the very first like anchor tenant beer there, African American that we put on because of Keith Carpenter. Because he'd come in from day one and would come in every 3 weeks to have a pint of Guinness. Wouldn't talk anything about beer, but it was like, it was great for him as he could wander in and he would say, I like it here because I don't have to do business. I can just come in here and be like I'm at a bar and not have to work. And then we put on the Rotator IPA and got rid of the 22-ounce bottle program because we were taking a bath on that. And then after that, and somebody goes, well, how many kegs do you want for the Rotator? So 1. What do you mean 1? We're going to do 1. And then we're going to go to the next IPA. Well, that won't work. And I'm like, it's going to work great. And, we tell people if your keg lasts longer than 3 days, it's a maybe for the next time. If it lasts more than 5, we're never ordering from you again. So pay attention. And in that sense, we did that. And I think we're 8-10 years more into that program. There's 5 beers that we won't bring back. And that's it. And so it's been fun because then people walk in, oh, I love that one. Yeah, well, it'll come back around. And so
You eventually put on Stella too.
yes.
Yeah.
And I'd sold Stella, loved Stella.
Yeah. I drank a ton of it in your bar.
And it was Stella Hogarden and Leifa Blonde. We'd carried all of those at differing times. And I still enjoy Stella. I like their chalice. I like their program. That's essentially where I wouldn't say that they invented the process, but they're the ones who really sold it to America was the rinsing of the glass. And so we'd put that in our well right away because I thought that was such a cool presentation that let people know that you cared about what was going to go into the glass. You wanted to make sure it was a clean glass. It was very regal. So, and European, and had that twinge was playing into what we wanted to. So, yeah.
Nice. Your stage went away and the 2 booths came in. And as much as I love sitting there watching those bands, drinking my Stella, those booths are pretty cool. They're giant horseshoe booths.
So I don't know if you guys heard, but in 2020, the bar shut down. It was really weird. Nobody told me. It was the day before St. Patrick's Day. I got a call. They said, hey, you know what? Tomorrow you can't open for St. Patrick's Day. Kicking the nuts. But for the next 3 months, I was the one who opened that bar because we never closed. That's my goal in life is we will be there when you want to drink. We're not going to tell you when you should drink. You're going to tell us when you want to drink, except for the state. And so as I'm there running the COVID snug where a couple people would raise pints and I was pushing the limits of waiting for your food to go by having a couple beers, I realized that it was people weren't coming down here. They were coming to Doyle's because they wanted to be at Doyle's. They wanted to have that comforting space. And as much as I enjoyed hosting Eddie Spaghetti and a couple of the other big names that came through there, that wasn't what the space meant to people. That's not what they thought of, oh, I'm going to go to Doyle's and see an awesome show. There's plenty of other places in Tacoma for that. They're coming there because they want to spend time with their friends. And a loud band sort of interrupts that sometimes. You don't have the opportunity for the quaint conversation. And so when you have time, which I had a lot, you start drawing up plans. And my buddy Dane, one of the COVID players, would come in after he was doing his remodeling project out, and he would hang out with me. and I'd keep him on the clock, so he was working with me. And we would draw out plans, and what do you think of this? What do you think of that? We could do this. And we had originally designed 3 booths, and we ended up with 2 booths. And I couldn't have been happier with, first off, his craftsmanship and his applying what I had doodled on a piece of paper, awful doodles, that he'd put into to play. We worked with a fellow named Rodney Baum, Rich Light Technology, which makes skate ramps. They're the people who make the boards for skate ramps, and that's what our tables are made out of. Is that skate,
cool.
and it's we were the first people to do tables with it. And he goes, "Are you sure you want to do that?" I'm like, "Those things are indestructible." And since I've stood on those tables to do work, and yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
You're not. Nothing's happening to them. No. So, as much as I miss the live music, I don't miss the headaches of live music, and I really enjoy the groups of people who have gravitated to those 2 spaces. And you'll find people who come in and will be disappointed when that's not available and sort of begrudgingly trudge off to the snug for their space. But those booths are have captured what I wanted to capture originally with Doyle's, which is those small, intimate spaces for friends to gather. So,
yeah. And you can sit there and look right straight across to all the people who drank the Guinness.
Yes. And read funny plaques.
Yes, very funny.
Father Miles. It looks so small in my hands.
The Guinness and the Jamesons.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I was in the October drawing. Yeah.
You're not a finalist, are you?
No.
Oh, but remember, you still have a chance. You come back in next February 17th. It's our lucky 13th. Everybody who missed out the rest of the year, you get a chance, and well, I'll send you to Dublin, which is the secondary. That was a off the cuff promotion. Started when we first opened up because I drank at a bar in Colorado when I was working at a ski resort. That they put bottles around the rim of the bar. Theirs was a clever way to get stupid tourists to throw tip money at a canister to generate revenue for themselves because it's 2 brothers who owned it.
Yeah.
Mine was, I like the concept of people just drinking Jameson. They put bottles up around the room. And those people really went through the Jameson. We go through some Jameson, but that bar killed it. And somebody goes, "What are you doing putting the bottles up there? You think you're some sort of frat house or something like that?" I said, "No, we're giving away a trip." And that was my off the cup. And because I didn't want somebody to go, "Oh, they're being like a frat house." I was like, "Fuck you! No, we're giving away a trip. Where are you giving away a trip to?" And I was like, "Vegas." It was the first place we went. We sent somebody to, and then you give that some time to marinate, and you're like, "Okay, we got to come up with a better thing than that. That's sort of lame." And then so we went to we'll send somebody to Dublin, and so yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Keep drinking. My favorite comment from anybody who's a part of the pint club or have done anything with the Jameson bottles is, "I was going to drink it anyways."
It's true life.
You've now given me a treat beyond what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting you to do this. I was going to order this beer and this shot anyways.
Absolutely.
And now you've given me this magically opportunity to win a trip to Dublin. I'll take it.
It was the icing on, like, Lisa and I were coming back, and we were just like, it was one of those like green light days. Like everything was super fucking bitching, and I pretty much called the shot. I was like, man, we're gonna walk in here as like, I'm gonna kill the bottle. I've never done it before. Sure as shit. Mwah.
4 times for me.
Nice, Ron.
Yep.
That kid.
Never made it across the pond, but I'll keep trying.
Well, I always tell people, if you just want to go to Dublin, buy yourself a trip. Much cheaper than trying to go to the bar and win one. But if you're going out for a drink, and you want the possibility of getting a lottery ticket, go out for a drink at Doyle's and you possibly get a lottery
It's
ticket.
that home accounting is like, oh, it's a lot for a trip to, but you space it out over the course of a year, like, it's a drop in the bucket.
And that's essentially what I've done with Jameson is you figure out how many bottles you're going to go through in a year, and you apply that sort of math to it and say, okay, we can afford this, and so we don't. you wouldn't look at it right away as a business go, yes, we're going to do that because it's going to make absolute sense. It was more one of those things you stumbled into, a happenstance that worked out in my favor yet again. Again, it's those happy, lucky, stupid things that just
Yeah, I love them.
that you luck into. It's like the fact there's a brick wall on one side of our building. The owners, Lyle, he said, let's see what the brick looks behind there. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So we start peeling away. Oh, that's great looking brick. We should pull down the wall. The city inspectors come in and go, well, now you got to put up these support beams. The support beams that they had to engineer cost more than the back bar we built. But that was on Lyle, because he was the one who said we should take down the wall. So again, we got that cool brick wall, and I always look at that stained glass window and think about it. There's a local artisan who made that in a front window for us. But when we passed our initial inspection, we had a Pilsner Kelmir over the hole, the actual hole in the wall, going to the parking lot. We put a no parking sign on the outside and a Pilsner Kelmir on the inside. But there was a hole in that space for close to a year. So if you wonder why it was so cold during the winter, that was why.
Speaking of your parking lot, my favorite Instagram series of all time is the Doyle's Fuck Up Parking Instagram series.
It's magic.
Unbelievable how the people park.
What I most enjoy about it is the people who take umbrage to, not the people who parked, because the people who parked will often reply back to us or get back to us and say, oh, that was hilarious, thank you. I'll do better next time.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I'll do better next time. But the people who say, oh, you must have a lot of customers that you can make fun of the way they park. Well, if they take themselves that seriously about parking, we don't want them as customers. We'll go from there to maybe they don't know how to park because there's no lines and it's such a crappy parking lot. Well, I feel like that parking is you don't need the lines. If you need the lines, then you probably shouldn't be out in public. Follow what everybody else is doing. It's always curious what happens in that parking lot. And this goes back to our first days where you show up and you'd find a motorhome in the parking lot, and you're like, nope, can't park here, partner. You gotta keep it going. So,
yeah. So, fuck up stories.
fuck.
But also, a quick, Shane Johns, guest number 1, and the whirlpool that I scrubbed many times at E9 was mentioned that there's some ass cheek prints.
I've heard tell that there have been ass
Right,
that
yes.
they're ass cheek.
I've heard tell that you know how they got there.
I do.
Yeah.
So when I was working as a distributor, I think, I'd just gotten into the business. Jason Mangoni was working for Adam Buff at the time. And Jason and I loved to drink Crown Royal. And I've grown up since then.
Yeah.
So he and I would run about town and drink it up, and then one night we're at E9 having a good session, and we start chatting to some ladies, and Jason goes, I'm the brewer here. And I was in my head, I'm like, did he just say he's the brewer here? Because I don't feel like he's the brewer. He does brewing, but he is definitely not the brewer. I mean, he's got the rubber boots and the earplugs. I think that qualified him. Do you guys want to check out the hot tub? So sure enough, we go over to the brewery next door with our beers and strip down and jump into the hot tub.
Yeah.
So yeah. That was my taint you tasted in early beers of E9.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's like, because they just haven't tasted as good to me since they moved to the new facility. Like, it's good, but it's not quite right.
and when Jason and I haven't seen him in a while, afterwards talked about that, like, we probably shouldn't say anything about that. Shouldn't say it. I'm like, yeah, you think? I think that both of us would probably be in a little bit of trouble. You more than me, because I don't work here anymore. But yeah, I just don't think it would be I don't think it would be a positive on our. But then when I listened to Shane's episode and I heard that, I was like, I immediately texted him and said, "Hey, I was listening to you on the pod, and I know
that's how it came about. Because he sent me a text. He's like, you got to ask him about it. I was like, why didn't you know about this before? It's been a fucking mystery for a long time.
What's crazy is I first met Shane when he was working at From the Bayou.
Yeah, dreadlock hippie Shane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who now his runabout friend Ben is the one who's cooking with me down at
he
Doyle's.
is.
And so in the small world that is Tacoma, you start drawing little circles of connections and how. And incest is not the word I would use, but it's just how
Kevin
those
Bacon-y.
Yeah, how those circles continue to get smaller and more refined, but they touch. More circles are touching on things, and so I look back with fondness on all those things about the fact that it was me in that hot tub, and then it comes around to Shane Johns, who I'd met when I was selling wine to Ben's brother Matt and his partner From the Bayou way back 98,
Yep.
99. Oh,
Yep.
and so it's because again I did a little catalog of my time in the industry in Tacoma and the people I'd worked with and the people that are still in the industry that I and I've mentioned a couple of them that I still I really enjoy. And that's the part. I would say one of my favorite parts about working for myself now is I get to choose who I get to work with. It's I really like the suppliers I get to choose. I really like the employees that work with me. I wouldn't have it any other way because if you're going to go to work, then you want to feel that camaraderie. And so
Good environment for everybody, and the guests too.
But I've got two fuck up stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
One involves just a very short, quick. When I was selling wine, Silver Oak, you have to sign out the bottles to go deliver them, and so I signed out a case or a 3-pack of 1.5 liters of Silver Oak. Gonna go deliver them. Get to my little Honda Civic, open up the door. All of a sudden, I feel the box starting to give way. One of the bottles goes down. I do my best Pele and I try to kick it in. Mm-hmm. I'm not Pele.
Were you close to Pele?
I was close to Pele.
Okay.
I kicked it into the car, so I think it broke with more force than just hitting the ground. I'm like, fuck. So I set the case in the car to go back in, close the door, walk back in. I go, hey, Pam, I just broke a bottle. She goes, one of the bottles you just signed out? I'm like, yes, one of the bottles I just signed out. And she goes, okay. She then looks out the window, and I go back out to clean it up. I open the car door. The case had tipped back against the door. The next 2 bottles come sliding out.
No.
At that point, I was tempted just to leave my sales stuff there, load up my car, and say, I'm done. I like this job up to this moment, and I thought I could do it for a little while.
That's a lot of money.
And so Pam, comes out and takes a picture with an actual camera, not with a phone.
Lighting.
Yeah, we have to get the labels up. We have to have all this proof to show that there was this breakage and not like shenanigan breakage. That we broke it, but we actually drank the wine. But that was for me a fuck up that happened, but it wasn't out of my doing. It was something that happened to me. Mm-hmm. The fuck up that I did to myself, which again, there's a multitude of them, but the one that came to mind because of the Parkway was because of Parky and Mary, and little Derek and I used to go over to the Apple Cup in Pullman. And so this one year, we roll over there, Matt and Mary in one bed, and little D and I in the other bed. I won't tell you who was the big spoon, who was the small spoon. But Matt still tells me about the time he looks over, wakes up in the morning, and sees me there in my underwear drinking a bottle of wine, like propped up in the bed, because I had woken up before him. He goes, "What are you doing?" I'm getting the day started. Here we go. Apple Cup, baby. But Apple Cup weekend happened to fall on a 3-day weekend, which meant as a salesman, I had to have in my orders early. I will tell you, I'd forgot that. As we're driving home that night or that day, I am calling up the order desk from memory, product numbers, trying to deliver product numbers to accounts, to account numbers that I'm trying to remember that need to be delivered on Tuesday. 15775 is a 15.5 gallon keg of Alaskan Amber. 90241 is a 15.5 gallon keg of Pyramid Hefeweizen.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
And so I am literally like Karnak. What is and just shipping it, and customer service is not happy with Russ at this point. I mean, when I think like Norm, when he had to load a truck and go down the 4th of July, I was the inverse of that. I had trucks loaded with so much shit going out to so many places that didn't need product, but I wanted to make sure that my route was covered. But managers got a little report back about return product, not the report that you want to be on as heavily as I was on a holiday right week. Oh my God. I would have rather broke 3 more cases of Silver Oak than had and then walk into accounts and say, "What the hell were you trying to? I didn't need that many cases of Mike's Hard Lemonade." You sure? Yeah, I felt like you were really busy over the weekend. I'm not busy over the weekend. What are you going on about? So that was my self-induced like sales rep screw up. I've also ordered ovens for a 208 that should have, or a 240 that should have been a 208. That cost me close to $10,000.
Oh.
Because there's no, you get them, you wire them up, and you're not thinking about it. The plug's all the same, but you burn out the stuff on the inside, and then the electrician comes out and tells you, "Hey, you know what you've done here, son? You done fucked up."
Oh no.
Yeah. I can laugh about it now. Because it is absolutely hilarious to then look back to the emails and the purchase orders and go, "Yeah, it was me. I was hoping that somebody else had done that, but that was my my later in life doing one to myself." Nice. And not in the cool way.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's like,
Yeah.
I think most of mine are self-induced. It's a funny thing, like how was that '99 Apple Cup game?
I found a pair of gloves in the porta potty because I had lost my gloves, which kept my hands warm. I'd been asked to leave the Apple Cup. I found my way back in because I went to the porta potties where I found my gloves, and there happened to be an opening in the fence. Somebody had pulled open the fence, so I just sort of wriggled my way through. Shimmied my way right back to where our seats are at, and because they'd asked me, "We need you to do this breathalyzer for your safety." I'm like, "No, you don't need to do that breathalyzer for my safety. I'm just fine, sir." And that was the only thing that saved me from going to jail that day for public intoxication, was my refusal to do that, and then getting back into the game. Shouldn't have drank that wine in the mornings. It's probably the lesson.
Freaking little D.
Yeah. Yes. And then when I saw parking, when I walked in, I was like, because I had thought about the story when he said, "We like this," and I was like, "I love that Apple Cup. That was a that was a good time. I mean, just a good time, because at that point I knew them we drank here at the bar together, but it wasn't like we were breaking bread at each other's houses on a weekly basis. And here we are in a shared motel room in twin beds next to each other. I mean, little D knew me as a guy who sold beer to him here. It wasn't like, oh, we grew up together. Yeah, let's jump in the car and drive to Pullman and go see the apple cut. I'm in. And so that again, the impromptu-ness and the smallness of Tacoma and the ability for people to say, yeah, let's go do this. Okay, let's do this. And so I'm a super big fan of Tacoma. In the sense that I like to see Tacoma be better, and the people who do things that make Tacoma better, I will support to no end. Verbally, financially, however I need to do it. There are so many cool things that go on in Tacoma and so many cool people who do things. The problem is we often support them post as opposed to current. We don't acknowledge or identify the coolness that they are. Sometimes you can't think of something cool to do to benefit them when they're making Tacoma better. But that's all I try to focus on now is when I see businesses or individuals who are doing things that make Tacoma better. I want them to succeed, and I want them to feel appreciated. Because if you don't, then they won't do the cool thing anymore. And so I implore people to, when you see something that's cool, it doesn't matter if you're the only person who thinks it's cool, support it. You'll find another person in your tribe who thinks it's cool. And then all of a sudden, from those 7 customers who thought import beers are cool to where I am to where I am today. And so, that's for me. That's one of those things that runs through my head through the last 20 years, from running for city council to opening the bar to creating different promotions. It was always, what can make Tacoma a better place to live? So
Hear, hear.
It's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
So. Good job, Russ. Man.
All right, Grit and Grainers. Email us at cheers@gritandgrainpodcast.com with your comments, opinions, and details on where to find monkey shines and classified document folders. We read and drink everything we receive, and we try to respond as quickly as we can. If not online, then on air. You can subscribe to Grit and Grain on Amazon, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. And please leave us a review. Also, check us out on Channel 253 and gritandgrainpodcast.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for episode notes, beer news, and stories of freakishly kitschy, creepy-tasting, saccharine-loaded, oddly metallic Tab Cola from the 60s that your mom drank throughout the 70s during breakfast with her Pall Malls. A soda that can barely get any more because Coke killed it at the end of last year, but which is still drunk by secret Tab cultists who search out the remaining poisonous drain opener stock because the stuff is wickedly addictive and crazily unhealthy and is still apparently cheaper than heroin, but in a good way. If this podcast is not what you expected, please alter your expectations. Anyone who subscribes his or her lover to the Grit and Grain podcast without telling him or her is the kind of person who slips some lovely nipple clamps into his or her lunchbox as a nice little workday surprise. No such thing as a bad time to visit Tacoma. No such thing as too much barley wine. Tune in next Friday for more sweet chatter. Cheers.
cheers.
Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us at Grit and Grain Podcast wherever you get your social media and catch new episodes every Friday. Cheers.
Channel 253 is a member-supported podcast network. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I'm asking you to become a member and show your support. Go to channel253.com/membership to join. Thank you. Grit and Grain is part of the Channel 253 podcast network. Check out our other shows: Nerd Farmer, Interchangeable White Ladies, Move to Tacoma, Crossing Division, Citizen Tacoma, What Say You, We Are Tacoma, Flounders B Team, and Taco Man.
This is Channel 253.
Get up.
This is Channel 253.